Tiffany will be providing a little bit different perspective on this project. She is founder of Acuity Group, PLLC, has more than 13 years experience in the combined areas of accounting, fraud examination, litigation consulting, and business analysis. As a result of her unique knowledge and experience, she is deeply passionate about the education and prevention of fraud. Acuity Group was founded in May 2007 out of Tiffany's desire to put this passion to work for those who find themselves victims and to provide personalized, specialized service in this niche field. Tiffany serves as Board Vice President of the Washington State Society of Certified Public Accountants, Southwest Chapter, previously serving as Board President for several years. She is a member of the American Institute of CPAs, including their Forensic and Valuation Services section, and the Associate of Certified Fraud Examiners. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree, accounting degree, cum laude from Central Washington University in Ellensburg. She is an honoree of the 2007 Accomplished and Under 40. Each year, up to 40 individuals in Clark County who are under the age of 40 are recognized for their professional, personal, and community accomplishments. Please welcome Tiffany.
I don't know if this is on. Thank you. Most people don't really know what a forensic accountant is. I'm a CPA, but I'm sort of your non-traditional CPA. You're not going to find me doing tax returns at the beginning of each year, and you're not going to find me doing financial statement audits any longer. 100% of my practice is basically telling the story of what happens to people's money. A lot of that is fraud investigation and going in and figuring out what happened to somebody's money. And other parts of that is looking at contracts, understanding relationships, and testifying in court when people sue each other and need somebody to talk about what has happened to their money. In this case, Mr. Medor contacted me probably less than 2 months ago and indicated that he had received all of these documents from a Freedom of Information Act request, and the documents were enormous, and could I help him go through what we had? And that's been my job. That's been a difficult job, given the documents and the way they were sent over. But another big piece of what we've done is we've met with the CRC project managers, the WSDOT higher-ups, and several meetings. And some of that has been really eye-opening to me, and because of what I do, raises more questions. And unfortunately today I don't have a lot of answers for you, but I do have a lot of questions based on what I'm seeing. And I'm hoping that together, along with our friends in Oregon this week, we've got some help there with some of the legislators. I'm hoping that we can encourage them to open up their books and actually show us what's going on, because right now they really don't want to show me what's going on. So, do we have my PowerPoint? Okay. There we go. So I was able to meet with, 10 legislators, both Democrat, Republican in Oregon. We went to Salem on Thursday. It was astounding. In that room, of the 10 legislators in our initial meeting, I started getting into this, and somebody raised their hand and said, "What is the CRC?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, what is it? Who is it?" So they did not know who the CRC was. Then I explained to them, I talked to them about the rent, and they said, "Well, wait a minute." Somebody else raised their hand and said, "What do you mean they have an office? What do you mean they pay rent? What do you mean they're sitting together?" They didn't realize that there was a CRC, that it was a joint venture between Oregon and Washington and several other entities. They didn't realize that they're sitting here in Vancouver paying rent. And so really, It was really astounding to have to back all the way up and give that education to our legislators. So we can't assume that they really know what's going on. And I guess it makes sense if you're from Medford or Klamath Falls, but some of these folks were closer in, Lake Oswego, didn't realize really what's going on. So I'm going to educate you a little. I won't go probably through all of this. It's not working. So just a really quick background. We kind of say three things have to happen for fraud to occur. One, somebody has to have an internal pressure or a need. And we read it in the newspaper all the time. The soccer mom or the person from an employer, they go in and they take their employer's money. They rationalize it by saying, well, gosh dang it, I just can't afford the mortgage this month. Or I want my kid to play baseball. And we have to limit opportunity. And as business owners, that's our job. But as citizens, how do we do that? It's sort of a big problem we have. As fraud investigators, there's three things that we look at when we go in and investigate fraud. The first is financial statement fraud, and we know that because we know what Enron did, right? They cooked the books. They wanted to make sure their financial operating results looked a little bit different so that Wall Street would like them and their stock price would go up. Asset misappropriation, that's pretty much somebody's taking money from the till or writing checks to themselves unauthorized. Pretty common with what I do. Corruption is the third sort of overall kind of fraud that can occur, and it actually is most common in governmental entities. And what corruption is wrongfully using one's influence in a business transaction. I'm not going to tell you about some of the relationship issues I'm seeing already because I want to make sure that we get it right before we say anything. But let's just say that in this project, relationships are going to be a big part of why we keep going forward with this. Corruption is done to procure a benefit for somebody for themselves. It's contrary to the duty of their employer or to the citizens who've elected them. And some examples are accepting kickbacks. That's what happened with the Oregon prison food scheme. The guy was accepting kickbacks. Conflicts of interest. This one, we have laws on the books regarding this, folks. Conflicts of interest means, well, I know David, and David knows me, or I'm an elected official, and I own a business as well. So can I use my position to procure benefit for myself? Bid rigging is another one. I don't know if we have any of this in this case. But I'm just trying to educate you as to why we are looking into what we're looking at and what some of the issues could be. 32% of all frauds that occur are in the category of corruption. In the last couple of months and even prior, we've requested documents from the CRC, and the first thing I do as a CPA is I say, I want to look at your financial statement. I want to know all the money coming in, and I want to know all the money going out. Pretty basic. In your home, it's your W-2, your money coming in, and you've paid your mortgage, and you've paid your health insurance, and you've paid your car payment, whatever it is. And if you, at the end of the year, put your numbers together, you'd kind of see where you were at the end. And as a business owner, most of us, that's what we do. We look at the numbers. And so the first thing I asked in our very initial meeting was, can you please provide me the financial statement for this project? They don't have one. They don't. So I said, okay, can I ask for the funding by source? So really quick, previous to my stint here as a fraud examiner, I used to be a governmental auditor. I used to audit schools and cities and counties and all kinds of different governmental entities down in California. So I understand governmental funding, and I understand where the government gets its income, tax dollars, funding from the feds, etc. So I said, I need to know the total funding by source. How much has come in from Oregon? How much has come in from Washington? How much have we gotten from the feds? We don't have that, Ms. Couch. So I said, okay, What about expenditures? Well, they attempted to give David and I the expenditures, and we'll get into that. But these are some of the things we've asked for. Nothing that I believe, especially at the outset of a job, would be really too hard to provide, and something that would be in the ordinary course of business. We've also asked for benchmarks to understand some of the newly built overpasses. I drive up and down I-5 a lot, and they're building new overpasses everywhere. And so we would just like to understand how much did some of those overpasses cost so that we can compare those to the overpasses that are happening or supposed to happen here. They've not yet given us that information. We also just want to know who they're paying. Who's their master vendor list? If you walk into Acuity Group and you ask for my master vendor list, if you ask for my financial statements, I'm going to be able to run a report pretty quickly for you. We also asked about audit reports. They've not had an audit done for the CRC nor for any of their major vendors ever for the last 5 or 6 years. So, total CRC funding by source. No reply. They actually told me physically they don't have that accounting. Total CRC expenditures. They said, well, Ms. Couch, that's too hard to do because Washington pays for some and ODOT pays for some. And I said, well, I understand that. I understand that, if you're going to build a building, you might have some money in savings and you're going to pull some of that from there, and you might get a bank loan and you might pull some of the money from the bank loan, and that's all going to kind of be combined so that you kind of know what you have to spend so that we then we understand how to spend it. They don't have that accounting in the CRC office here in Vancouver. For expenditures, they said, well, we can't really tell you total expenditures for the project in detail because we don't have that. But the WSDOT people, we have given you this data dump from our system, and we can tell you what we've paid, at least what WSDOT has paid for this project, which they did. And I think that was from 2006 through 2010, and they had paid $108 million so far. We'll get into those details pretty soon. I asked about project deliverables. So I said, you've spent $120 million or $150 million. We don't really know. What have we gotten for those project deliverables? What do we get? And she being the CRC, the manager, she's brand new, Nancy Boyd, she said, I don't really know. I need to get that to you. That would be something good that we should have. And I said, I think so. I did find something on their website here pretty recently that proposes that it is the project deliverables, but it doesn't really reconcile to the information that I have so far. We asked for financial statements. They said they are not required to do financial statements. They're not required to have that 30,000 foot, what's the money coming in, money going out. They are not required to do that. So that's not something we're probably ever going to get. They've still not replied to us on benchmarks of the overpasses and the master vendor list, which David's been asking for months, long before I ever even walked in on the scene. They don't. And then again, the audit reports have not been performed. So what do we have so far? 715 miscellaneous PDF files. Now, when I request documents from a client, I always ask for the financial statement so I can look at the big picture, and then I say, okay, give me contracts, give me your vendor payable file, give me bank statements and canceled checks, and generally those things come to me in a pretty orderly fashion. Unfortunately, the documents that have been provided to us are in no orderly fashion, and Mr. Medor really explained it to them well one day during a meeting. He said, you've given us a lot of data, but we don't have any information. And unfortunately, we've got a private citizen now hiring my services to put the data together so I can provide all of you and him and whoever wants to listen with information. Some of the files are so large that it just knocks your computer down. There'll be thousands of pages in a single PDF file. The pages don't seem to relate to each other. If I asked you for a vendor payable file and I wanted to know everything that was paid to US Digital, you're going to go and pull up a vendor file, and you're probably going to pull out all the invoices that you paid to US Digital, and all of those would be in some chronological order, or at least by year. That's not happening either. unfortunately.